Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm Mads and today is going to be a fun video. I think I say that every week now. They're all just fun videos. So there's kind of been this trend, I guess, going around on Instagram talking about the books that summon you. Basically just your all-time favorite books. If somebody mentions them, you'll be summoned. So today I wanted to talk about the books that summon me, aka my all-time favorite books. Like, if you mention any one of these books, I'm here. I'm willing to talk about them. I love them with my whole heart and being. I take like no criticisms on them, really. Yeah, there are criticisms on these, and I recognize that I don't have any criticisms of these, and I just love them. These are like the 5 stars, which I'm starting to compare kind of my new-ish rating system to. So if a book doesn't reach this level, then it's not 5 stars. So let's dive into it. Okay, so I'm gonna go top down, going from my number 1 all-time favorite book and then so on. Now, it's not really a good scale, I guess, or good ranking, because some of these are kind of just hard to compare to each other because some of them are just very different. So I guess the ranking isn't exact, I guess, but just the general sense of favorite to, I guess, least favorite of my all-time favorites. Okay, first up, I'm going to start with my all-time favorite book. And if you've seen my previous videos, I think by now you start to understand which one's my favorite. It's Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. My best friend is on the couch right now reading my other copy because I literally have 3 copies of this. The original one I bought forever ago. This one, which was sent to me from Elsa, fully annotated for my birthday / Red, White, and Royal Blue movie day. And then the special edition from, again, my best friend / roommate for my birthday. So it was a really just Red, White, and Royal Blue themed birthday. I absolutely adore this book and will take no criticisms. Like, I'm blind to all criticisms when it comes to this book. I mean, I know some people have rated this like 1 star, but it physically hurts me to read those reviews, and I understand that you should like read these different reviews, but guys, I just unapologetically love this book so much. If you don't know, this book follows the son of the president, the first female president, and the Prince of England as they fall in love. And it's just so cute. It's just this best little adult queer romance. It has different characters of color, it has different mental health representation. It just is this perfect little mix of everything that I love, and I just really adore this book with my entire heart and being. I think I read this the summer of 2021. I just remember devouring this book in a day the first time I read it. I then ended up reading it literally a couple months later for Thanksgiving. I just devoured it over that week. And then I've just proceeded to reread it every year. In fact, I love it so much that I can only read it when I'm in a good mental space, or else I will just spiral and be like, I will never love anything as much as I love this. And it's really bad. Like, that I love it so much that it hurts. It's just perfect. Alex has my entire heart, and I feel like I relate so much to Henry. So it's really just a fun time. And I want an Alex in my life. I need one. There's also a lot of political aspects to this book too, and I don't like politics. Politics typically just goes right over my head, but I think that their kind of relationship and the politics around it gave it a certain level of stakes that a lot of contemporaries don't have, and that helped me really love it because I find it hard to really just love a book in every aspect if it doesn't have a certain like level of stakes to it. Like, if there's nothing going wrong, then it's hard to be super invested, at least for me. And I don't know why I feel that way. So I feel like that's why you typically don't see me rating contemporaries 5 stars, because they lack this like stake, this like hurt, comfort, whatever, I don't know, the angst. I just really loved it, and this had everything. This book literally has everything. A lot of people say it's enemies to lovers. I don't really think so. It's more of a bickering rivals to lovers, and it is a fairly quick burn, not really much of a slow burn. They end up kissing within like the first little bit, but the rest of the book is just them developing their relationship along with the roles that they are currently in the world, because they're in very big roles. So I always suggest reading Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Casey McQuiston is an icon, and I need to read her other book. Casey, if you're watching this, I adore you. Thank you for giving me this amazing book. I know you're not probably watching this, but on the off chance, man, you have my heart. Funny enough, the next book I'm talking about is also by Casey McQuiston, and that's One Last Stop. This book has one of the best found families I've ever read. And I feel like that's kind of saying a lot, because I have read a lot of different found families, but Okay, One Last Stop is about our main character, August, who has recently moved to New York and has kind of had a hard life. Her mom's always looking for her missing brother, and she just bounces around a lot, doesn't make any friends. She's never really had any friends before. So she comes to New York, and she's kind of expecting the same thing to happen here. And she kind of has to move in with these, I think there's 3 other people in this apartment, but she moves in with these 3 other people and kind of just expects her life to go the same as it's always been. But not only does she kind of start to connect to these other guys, but she meets a girl on a train. And funny thing about this girl on the train is that she's from the 70s, and she's kind of stuck on this train and has been since the 70s. Just she can't get off. She's stuck there, like stuck in time. And so August makes it her mission to free Jane from this train, and kind of has to have the help from her roommates. The found family is just so good. And I think that's probably my favorite aspect of this book. And then romance is my second favorite aspect to it, because the romance honestly was really good and had me like kicking, screaming, crying, everything, all the emotions. I just loved their chemistry. I loved all the banter in this book. I need to give it a reread because, oh my gosh, like it's just so good. It's so good. And again, this one also is a adult queer contemporary romance, and it has a little bit of a magical twist or sci-fi twist depending on how you think about it. So again, that kind of does give it this level of stakes. So I think this book is perfect. I could not put this book down. I really adored this book. It was just perfect. Okay, next up is an iconic book. Again, one I've talked about quite a bit, but that is the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. This book is about our main character, Percy Jackson, who discovers he's a demigod and in the center of this major prophecy. In this first book, Zeus's master bolt has gone missing, and Zeus is blaming Percy on it. So Percy has to go find it before everything just breaks loose and goes chaotic and a war starts. So it's a very fun mythological adventure. It is juvenile fiction and very much an urban fantasy, because you have these fantastical elements of like powers and gods and mythology, but set in this modern setting. So this book is just super good. It has a great little found family developing, and Percy just finding he has people like himself that he can trust and rely on, including his best friends, Annabeth and Grover, who are just iconic. I grew up on this book series, and it makes me very happy that it's still continuing to this day. I just really love this book series, and I know it's for kids, but I feel like honestly anyone of all ages can read this, and it's a very quick read because of the age range, but it still has these like really amazing messages of just friendship and power and loyalty, because Percy is super loyal. Guys, I love it so much. It just makes me really happy, and every time I reread it, because I reread it fairly often, typically once a year. I didn't read it this year like I planned to because I just got busy this summer with other books, but I typically reread it once a year, and every time I read it, I'm just filled with this just nostalgic joy because of how much I just love this book and how perfect this book is for me. It makes my inner child very happy to know that we're getting an adaptation in December. It is my Christmas present. Anyways, this book is perfect. Next up, and I know this next one is so popular. I enjoyed this book so much. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book is about our main character, Violet Sorrengail, who is kind of forced to undergo the initiation into the Rider's Quadrant, which is this section of the military that rides dragons. And it's very deadly. Like, I think most of their year end up dying and only a third end up making it through, like super deadly. She's already kind of small. She had this, I think, sickness when she was a kid that made her bones and ligaments super prone to breaking and tearing. It adds a whole other level of difficulty to it. It has a fairly quick burn, enemies to lovers romance in it. I totally get if you don't like it. I think the writing feels very kind of modern for a fantasy. I think the writing is kind of what you'd expect to see in a contemporary, and so I think that is just kind of shocking and kind of draws people out of it. I honestly found it kind of fun just to have this contemporary writing in a fantastical setting. It just made it more fun, I think. I really loved Violet. I think she was amazing. I loved how every other chapter she was just like determined that like she will not die today. That's like a fun little mantra, you know, I will not die today. But I really also love the little found family she develops with the other people in her section of the Fourth Wing. They were just like, I just really, really love them. And at first, you don't really get to see them much, but like slowly throughout the book, you just get more interactions with them. I love the characters. I love the plot and I love the characters. And the romance was to die for. I think it reminded me a lot of For Interest from Divergent, and that's partially why I loved it so much, because that's not a dynamic I really see often in books. Though I'm sure it's out there a lot, I don't really read them, and maybe I should because I just really enjoyed it, and it kind of took me back to Divergent, but a fantasy, adults, and dragon setting. So it was also really fun. I loved the banter between Violet and her dragons. The banter was just perfect. Banter carries a book so far for me, and the banter in this book was just really amazing. The ending was insane, such a big cliffhanger. I am currently reading Iron Flame, the well-anticipated sequel. I just really love Fourth Wing, guys. Next one is kind of a book that I read quite a bit ago, and that is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This book is about these 5 characters who go into detention and only 4 come out. The 5th one dies mysteriously and everybody thinks one of these 4 killed him. So they kind of have to go through this whole mystery. They don't know if they can trust each other, and they all have these like really big secrets that they're trying to hide. So it's super good, very intense, very quick read. I think this book series is just very well planned out. Everything from the beginning of the story is kind of hinting towards the end, and I just kind of love that because it also kind of helps you piece together what the mystery is and who did it, which is also fun, just trying to put it together throughout the entire book. My favorite part of this, and I know this is gonna come at a really big shock, but my favorite part of this book was the found family. I've said that phrase a lot in this video, and you're just gonna continue to hear it because most of these books have the found family trope in them. I just loved getting to see these 4 characters who are all very different from each other, who didn't really know each other at first, just all come together and are tethered by this mystery, and them just starting to rely on one another. And I also loved getting to see their character development, especially Addie's. Addie goes through the most character development that I've seen from almost any character, really. She goes through a lot, and I think she definitely comes out for the better. There's just so many different aspects to this book that I really enjoyed. I can reread this book anytime just to get back into this world again because I just really enjoyed these characters and their dynamic. This one is a YA contemporary mystery, I guess thriller mystery, if you will. Next one is an amazing book series that I just adore. That is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I know this one is kind of a little bit of an older one, and I really regret not reading it sooner, and I think I kind of mentioned that in my last video. This series follows these 4 different girls, all based off of fairy tale characters, and each are a fantastical science fiction fairy tale retelling. It follows Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Snow White, and their accompanying love interests as they go through this war with the evil queen. She's not called the evil queen in the book series, but that's kind of what she's based off of, and it's just really fun. You get some hidden identities. Like, each book kind of brings in its own set of tropes with the romance it introduces, and I found it really enjoyable. I really loved the characters in this one, and they develop such a great found family through this book series, and they kind of just collect these characters as they go along, and it's just so fun. Like, I loved it so much. Thorn was my favorite character of all time. I adore him. I want one, okay? I want a born. But I also just loved Cinder and Kai and their relationship kind of just going throughout the series, and it's just so, I just really loved this series, and now I'm kind of tempted to reread it after talking about it because I just loved it so much. It was so good. And it is a YA kind of fantasy sci-fi book that is a fairy tale retelling, like I said, set in a more futuristic setting, and it's just super fun and just intense. I just really love this book series. It's so good. Next up is a book I actually read this last summer that quickly became my favorite. I started it and I was really hesitant. I was scared I wasn't gonna like it because it was very whimsical and kind of odd, and I was just worried that I wouldn't like it. But that is A House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. And let me tell you, the whimsicalness of it, perfect. Perfect. I don't think I've ever really read a book like this that's kind of a cozy, whimsical fantasy. And so starting it, I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird. It very much reminded me of Lemony Snicket's writing in a way. And I don't know what made me think that, but it just kind of did. So I was genuinely not expecting I would love it this much by the end, but I fell in love with this book. This one is about this very magical world, and we have our main character Linus, who is a social worker and has to go investigate this very kind of secret orphanage that just feels very dangerous, and they selected him because of how just unbiased and truthful he is in all his reports. And so he goes to this place and sees all these children, which are all very just intense and weird, and one of them's literally the son of Satan, which is like super weird to say in such a cozy fantasy. So he goes to this orphanage and he was not expecting any of this. He intends to stay as unbiased as he can, but he quickly just falls in love with this life and these children, and the caretaker, Arthur, who, he's just a sweetheart. I just love Arthur, okay? And they have such an amazing little found family, and it feels more like a real found family because you have these like two dads, this aunt, and all these kids. And it was just so cute and wholesome, and it made my heart so happy, and I just wanted to protect these kids at all costs. And even when it felt like nothing much was happening, and as you just kind of go through it, you're like, oh, I guess there's not much happening. He's just kind of getting to know these characters. And then you kind of get a little bit of stakes, but it's not a lot, just enough to keep it going, but also keep it just heartwarming as well. It's just so cute, whimsical. I just can't. It is so very cute. I'm pretty sure this is a YA book. Like, it follows the main character who is a adult. I think he's in his like 30s, but it feels very YA. I wouldn't be surprised if it was adult though. Maybe some form of new adult. I'm really not sure, but it is a just very cozy fantasy, kind of an urban fantasy, because it does take place with like a city and these like corporate jobs, which is very modern and urban, but with these fantastical elements of fairies and gnomes and all these fun things. It's like a warm hug. This book is a warm hug. Next, I have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I just really loved this book, okay? Like, this mystery is mind-blowing, and I knew I had a lot of high hopes going into it, and the hype was lived up to. The hype was lived up to. We have our main character, Pip, who for a school project decides to kind of reinvestigate this murder that happened a couple years back. This guy had murdered his girlfriend and then had killed himself, but she believed that he didn't do it. So her project is to reinvestigate and kind of come to a different conclusion. And she kind of goes in a little bit too deep. She ends up recruiting the guy's brother, Ravi, to help her through this mystery. She gets dragged into a lot of different dangers, and it's just very, very intense. And she definitely wasn't expecting it to be as intense, but it was just so good. One thing I loved about this book is kind of the multimedia aspects to it. If you don't know multimedia, it's just including like newspaper clippings, text messages, reports and stuff in the book. It makes you dive into it a little bit more. So I don't want to like spoil anything. So I'm gonna hold it so you can't read anything here, but it has just these suspect names with circles and points and like arrows and bullet points, just trying to connect everything together, and it just makes you feel more a part of the mystery. By the end, I didn't know who did it. Like, it came as a shock to me, but It also, I think, was written very well to where you could predict it. You could analyze it with Pip's brain and get to the same conclusion. I wasn't able to. And I thought it was just insane. And I loved that just jaw-dropping moment. Like, I love mysteries where I can predict or I can tell who did it by the end, because I love piecing things together. But I also really, really love mysteries that I don't know what's happening and I don't know who has done it, and I'm just in for the ride and you just have to keep going. This was definitely one of them. The next 2 books were also amazing. I think As Good as Dead was probably my favorite just because of the intensity and the angst and just everything, and you really see Pip kind of starting to break down after all this trauma and all this stuff happens to her. So I think this book series is just amazing. It is a YA mystery. There is some aspect of romance to it, like you hear a lot about Pip and Ravi, but romance honestly isn't the main aspect to this, and I think that has to be kept in mind because the main aspect are the mysteries, and like Pip is the main character. So I think that's always important to keep in mind, but also the romance is a very fun and just amazing part to it that just makes you want to sob. Also, Ravi's a king and I want one. Next up, I'm sure is not going to be a big surprise. I think this one is on a lot of people's favorite lists. That is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I think this one kind of connects well with King of Scars. Imagine It's in My Hand or something, because I just didn't feel like getting it down. The moral of the story is I was just too lazy to grab King of Scars, but I really loved Six of Crows and I just adore King of Scars. They belong on the list together. This book series is about these 6 characters who are all gang members who are sent on a heist to break somebody out of the impenetrable ice court, because they're all masterminds and they all have very special skills, and it's just very cool and very fun. You never know what's happening in this book ever. Like, most people don't understand what's happening or the plot or any of Kaz's plans, but it's just still such a fun, amazing book. I love the found family in this one. It's just one of my favorite found families, and the different romances that accompany them are just amazing for whatever reason. The first time I read this, I didn't love Matthias, and like I wasn't a big Helnik girly, but through the years, guys, I think Helnik has become my favorite Six of Crows ship. Meanwhile, you have King of Scars, which follows Nikolai, Zoya, and Nina, which we see in this book, and just kind of their adventures after the events of Crooked Kingdom and Ruin and Rising, and it's very intense, has a lot of aspects of politics and war, and Nikolai fighting his inner demons, and I think Nikolai, Zoya, and Nina are literally probably some of my all-time favorite characters ever. So just a book with those 3 perspectives filled me with so much joy, and I loved them, and I loved every aspect of it. I'm always willing to talk about like Six of Crows, but I don't see a lot of people talking about King of Scars, and it hurts because King of Scars is just one of my favorite books. And Zoya is probably my favorite ship ever, next to First Prince. I have such an intense love for these books, and like I don't care about the first 3 really, but it's these next 4 that I just adore, especially when it comes to Nikolai, Zoya, and Nina. So if you ever want to talk to me about King of Scars, please do, because almost no one does. This next one is probably the newest acquisition to this list, and that is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'm a really big Criminal Minds girly, and I'm a really big Found Family girly, and I'm a really big YA mystery girly, and that is this book. Like literally all 3 of those things. Wrap it up in a bow like it is on the cover, and you have this book. This book follows our main girl, Cassie, who kind of gets inducted into this program within the FBI that focuses on honing these teenagers' natural abilities, their skills that work really well with the FBI. You have profilers, a human lie detector, somebody who detects emotions, and then kind of this statistic mastermind and just overall genius who all work together to solve cold cases. Well, they kind of get dragged into an active case surrounding somebody who's kind of recreating Cassie's mom's murder, because Cassie's mom had been murdered a couple years before, and so somebody's just recreating how she died. And because it's so close to Cassie, they kind of use Cassie and the other naturals to solve this case, and it gets really intense, and it has a really big twist, and it's just, you don't see the ending coming, or at least I didn't. If you saw the ending coming, I'm very impressed. I did not. And so it just left me with like jaw on the floor. I was up on the couch screaming and just so intensely invested in this book. I really need to get the last 2 books. I don't have them. I need to get them so I can get more of them, and so I can see their found family develop even more. Their found family very much is very siblings bickering, at least in this first one. In the next one, you kind of get to see them trying to protect each other a little bit more, but it very much is giving a whole bunch of teenagers stuck in a house together, and they refuse to admit it, but they love each other, so they're just gonna continue to fight and bicker and pick on one another, and it's just so good. Last book is kind of an older one. I read this book when, again, I think this was my sophomore year of high school, along with One of Us is Lying, and it was just so good. If you have been watching BookTube for a really long time, you may know of, I think her screen name is Poland Banana Books, or Christine Riccio. She published Again But Better a couple years back, and I just absolutely adored this book. It is a kind of, I want to say this one is more of a new adult contemporary about our main girl Shane, who goes to study abroad in London, but instead of following the path of what she's studying, which is medicine, she decides to do a creative writing internship because that is what she really wants, but that's not what her parents want for her. So she kind of defies her parents' orders and kind of goes on this creative writing study abroad trip. Well, staying in like the same area, same place with her are these other characters who kind of form a little bit of a found family, not a very prominent one, but enough to kind of bring me some joy, and I love their group dynamics. This book has a very fun twist literally in the middle. So insane. It has a very magical twist to it, and I love contemporaries with a good magical twist. It just adds, again, another level of stakes to it, and so she has a chance to kind of relive her study abroad program, but kind of do it better the second time. And so it's just really amazing. I think my favorite aspect of it has to be the romance between Shane and Pilot. I want what they have. They're just so cute, and I love them, and they're meant to be, and their banter just, I loved their banter so much. I haven't read this book since I first read it, so maybe if I reread it, I would feel differently. But until I reread it and until I get newer thoughts on this, I will always adore this book. And not a lot of people have read this one, and I know some people who have read it didn't really love it, didn't really enjoy it. And again, I totally get that. But if you have read this and if you have enjoyed it, please talk to me about it, because I don't have anyone to talk to about this one. And it's so good. I think especially if you are in college and you're kind of experiencing this, like, oh, you don't go out much, you haven't really lived. That is exactly what Shane is going through, and so you kind of get this story and you get to see her learn how to live her best life. So yeah, that was such a good one. Those are my top 11 books. Those are the books that summon me. If you talk about these books, I will come running and scream to you about them and just talk your ear off about them, because I love them so much. They all mean just kind of something different to me. They all mean so much to me and have my heart. If you love any of these books, please talk to me about them. Don't be afraid to reach out, and you can always reach out to me on my Instagram, which is where I am most right now. So Mads is Reading on Instagram. Talk to me on there, and we can scream about these books together, because I love them so much. That's all I have for you today. Please let me know in the comments what are your top favorite books, the books that will summon you. Once again, as always, please like, comment, and subscribe below, and I will see you all next week. Bye!